All right, so it's probably safe to assume at this point that we're going to be in for more, for lack of a better word, tyranny. I mean, schools have reopened now. I mean, at least in most areas, I believe, um, and the cases have gone up. Now, considering the fact that the schools have been only open for like a day or two, it's probably safe to assume that the increase in cases has nothing to do with schools reopening. But if the cases continue to stay high, you're going to have all these paranoid people that are going to be like, oh, the we got to close the schools, we got to increase every restriction, right? Like, so that's going to be something to look out for. I mean, I've warned about it before, but that's going to be something to warn about it, or sorry, about. And this is from Brett Sears here on Twitter, and he says, from my son's school, they plan on trying to force healthy students and even parents into quarantine. And again, that's from New Brunswick. Again, you've heard about this kind of stuff in New Zealand, or was it Australia? I mean, both of those countries have had incredibly tyrannical restrictions, and anybody who complains about, I mean, let's not even be politically biased here. Anybody who complains about Justin Trudeau being tyrannical or a dictator, or anybody who complains about Trump being tyrannical or a dictator and doesn't first, or at the very least, acknowledge the fact that Australia and New Zealand have done stuff that is way over the top, like not even a question over the top. I really don't care about you complaining about Trudeau or Trump. Now, both of those people have legitimate gripes against them. I mean, I would argue Trudeau more, but and I think the data pretty clearly points to that, and the fact that it's Trudeau who's more big on the lockdowns and it's Trump who's more big on let's get things going again. But nevertheless, that's a different topic in and of itself. I don't think that the powers that ought not to be got what they wanted out of this whole situation. I think they wanted more. It's not looking like a vaccine's going to happen anytime soon. Again, they've been saying, yeah, we're within a month away or two, for months now. I've seen reports now that the earliest they could expect one is like mid 2021. So we're talking, it's highly, highly unlikely they even get one by then. And it's almost a certainty we're not going to have one for this winter, which means it's pointless, right? And you have all these people talking about the whole Russian vaccine, right? But like I thought you guys were super skeptical of Russia, right? But now when they have a vaccine, all of a sudden you don't care about it. And when Fauci and Bill Gates, especially, and all these kind of people can't make any money off of it, all of a sudden the mainstream media isn't pushing it, right? Like, here's the thing: the mainstream media will only push a vaccine on people if people like Bill Gates can make money off it. And they've flat out said on video that they expect to make money off it. So again, anybody who thinks, oh, it's a conspiracy, no, they literally said on camera about this kind of stuff. Like, again, how stupid can people be these days that we literally have people admitting stuff on camera, but yet they still refuse to believe it. Like, that's where we're at these days. Like that's where we're at. So anyway, that's something that I would really look out for. And again, a lot of people think we're out of the woods. People say, "Oh yeah, the economy's back going and strong again," when in reality it isn't. And if it was, we wouldn't have to be pumping in so much money into the economy, because if it was, why do you need to pump in so much money? And the same goes for the States too. I mean, the States is better than Canada, but still, that's the one thing that I think Trump is dead wrong on. I mean, not dead wrong, but mostly wrong, is him talking about how, there's so many jobs are being created. Well, all of those are just ones that were destroyed by the lockdown. So to be fair to Trump, it is largely the Democratic-run states that are the ones that still have the highest unemployment. So a lot of this kind of stuff is out of his control. To be fair, um, but nevertheless, he still shouldn't be talking about that kind of stuff. So anyway, like I said, keep up with this kind of stuff, because the government's still going to push crazy stuff on us. I think that they've gotten so much power completely unjustly out of this stupid virus thing that they're going to keep pulling and pulling and pulling right up into the point to where people say no. And if we say no now, we will at the very least maintain what little freedom we have left. If we don't say no at all, we'll have nothing left by the end of this. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up is we had another case yesterday of a black guy that was killed. This time, there wasn't as much outrage, but it did trend on Twitter a little bit. I don't know if it still is or not, but the whole justice for Dion K. And the simple reason too is that this one's just so blatantly obvious. I don't even think they can pull it off. In that the kid had he had a gun. I mean, the video clearly shows it. Um, and not to mention too, there's videos of him on social media um, trying to act like I mean, he probably is a gangster, but nonetheless, uh, being all gangster like with his gun. So yeah, that it couldn't be a more clear cut case of um, you do that kind of stuff, you're gonna get shot. Now, it's the same stuff too. Like George Floyd and Jacob Blake and these other cases, they're a little bit different because they're not quite as over the top as this one. But still, but still, if this is the best cases of police brutality and racism we come up with, I'm sorry, but it doesn't exist then. Like, it doesn't exist. Like, find me cases of cops abusing people who aren't violently resisting arrest, who aren't career criminals in many of these cases, who aren't people with weapons. Like, find me some cases that, and then people say, oh, well, resisting arrest shouldn't equal a death sentence. Well, it does when you have a weapon and you try and use it on the police. And this is the thing too, that these people, they expect cops to be held to this insanely high standard. And I'm not saying cops shouldn't be held to a high standard, but the thing that they never think of is that if you were in their position, do you think it would be reasonable to be held to that high of a standard? And 99% of these people, though, the answer to that would be no. Because if you're literally saying that you can't use lethal force on someone who you know is a violent criminal, at the very least it's alleged. And again, um, if you, I mean, if you are accused of a crime and you flee the country, or if you're accused of a crime and you violently resist arrest and go for a weapon, that's pretty much a confession that you're guilty of the crime. And again, people say, "Oh no, you have the right to a trial and whatnot." Well, again, you rescind that right when you violently resist arrest. Like, I don't understand these people. Like, you have the right to be presumed innocent, but only if you're peaceful about it, right? Like, it's so insane that we even have to go over this in society. It's not even funny. And like I say, this is the thing too, that if racism is this massive issue against black people, especially from the police, then show me all these examples of police mistreating people who aren't violently resisting arrest and who aren't violent criminals. Like, show me the examples. There's definitely some, but it's much less than what people think. Like, it's much less than people think. So anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up is Jacques Posobiec pointed this out, and he says during Mao's Cultural Revolution, the Red Guards would confront people on buses and in the streets and at random and challenge them to recite specific passages from the Little Red Book. If they could not, they were beaten, maybe killed. Who knows? But again, this is the same kind of stuff that's going on these days. You have these cases of these people showing up to people's houses and confronting them in public. And if you don't go along with the whole no justice, no peace, Black Lives Matter BS, then you're attacked. Then you're attacked. And this is the problem, that it doesn't matter how noble your cause is. If people don't have the right to tell you to F off, then you don't, number one, there's no such thing as free speech, at least according to these people, and you don't live in a free country then. If you want to have a free country, then people have the right to respectfully disagree with you. But not to mention too, there's every reason in the book to disagree with BLM at this point. Number one, they were started by largely Marxists. Number two, they're very violent in many cases, and again, people always make that point. No, they're clearly very violent. They riot and loot all the time, which again, people justify that for some insane reason, which doesn't make any sense. Like, what happens when you riot and loot? Well, the people in said businesses lose their jobs, and because it's oftentimes black-owned businesses, you're only hurting other black people, right? Like, they're so stupid, it's not even funny. They burned down a low-income housing unit in Minneapolis. Who lives in low-income housing units, at least disproportionately? It's blacks. Um, Not to mention too, um, why in the world would a potential entrepreneur want to reopen or open a new business in a black neighborhood if they know that the reason that the old one isn't there anymore, or the competition isn't there anymore, is because they got burned down for no reason, because there was no reason to do it in the first place, right? Like George Floyd died of a drug overdose. That evidence clearly shows that. So again, if you're a business owner and be like, hey, if a black guy dies for no reason, but people become hysterical and want to lynch the cops and anyone who supports it, and if they don't go along with their cult, basically, we're gonna burn down your business. Like, why in the world would you want to open a business there? So what's going to happen after that is that, sure enough, no one wants to open a business, and the only people that do are the ones that aren't going to open good businesses. And then it's going to be, oh, black people have to pay more for groceries because they have to go further, and black people have to pay more for this and that because racism. And no, it's because no one with a brain wants to open a business there, because if a black guy dies of a drug overdose, in police custody, they'll riot. If a black guy who's a violent criminal who violently resists arrest and gets shot because he had a weapon on him, they're gonna riot and loot. Like, again, like it's so insane that we're at this point in society. It should be very simple to understand, but apparently for some reason it isn't. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is Melania Trump made a speech at the RNC about a week back, and obviously, again, she has an accent. I think she's from Slovenia, is it? Or one of those kind of countries in Eastern Europe. But basically, um, yeah, Bette Midler, who is a pretty big lefty, said, "Oh my God, she still can't speak English." And this is the thing. Number one, I think she can speak like four, five, six languages, like literally. Obviously, the one from her home country, English, probably French, Swiss. Who knows how many languages she can speak? But nonetheless, James O'Keefe points out, accuse the other side of which you are guilty of. And again, this is just another example of the left accusing people of what they're guilty of. They always accuse the right of being, oh, you're racist and all this garbage, but yet they do the exact same thing. And this is what you see in politics, is that whatever someone accuses someone else of, especially on the left, the first thing you should do is try and find, hey, are they guilty of this? Because oftentimes you'll find they will be. And it's the same thing with this kind of stuff. The left likes to accuse the right of being racist, even though it's them who are the ones that support the literal racist laws. It's them that are the ones that defend literal racist laws. So and not to mention, too, there's many. I mean, they're the ones that believe in the concept of white privilege, which is not even true. And even if it is true, it shouldn't be true by their standards, because they don't believe judging people by collective standards. So, at the very least, when it comes to race. So again, it's just pure hypocrisy. And again, it's very boring to have to go over this kind of stuff because you do it over and over and over again because there's so many examples of it. But the reason I do it is that there's a lot of people out there who still don't think that this is the case. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, BitChute, and Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.